Certain things that we can do to kind of edge our bets for growing a year's worth of vegetables. And that's sowing something every week. This is kale that I've just potted on yesterday. So I'm going to let that grow on a little bit longer and I want to be planting that out. I have 11 kales here, which will probably produce enough kale for the entire year for our family because we like kale, but we're not like massive eaters of kale. So that'll work really nice. Another thing we can do is edge our bets and get fast growing plants. And this time will grow a lot faster than my wooden thyme because it's sprawling thyme, which means that it grows rapidly and it sets down roots all over. So I'm going to be getting this out really soon. I'm also going to be kind of doubling down on perennials because perennials for me is like the lazy way of gardening. You set and forget it. And I got things like down here I've got some asparagus. And once it's gone fully dormant, I'm going to scoop that up, put it in a pot and plant it out. I grow most of my perennials from seed just because they're so much cheaper. But there are a heck of a lot of things that we actually grow a year's worth of already, such as strawberries. We grow more strawberries than we really know what to do with. And in terms of like jam and fresh strawberries, strawberry syrup, you name it, we have enough for an army. This is our garlic bed and we grow a year's worth of garlic easily. We have this bed and we have another larger bed, and between those two beds we grow enough for both seed and for eating. This doesn't look like much, but this is our raspberry bed and we definitely grow enough raspberries. Raspberry jams in smoothies and even fresh eating, we've got absolute tons. But it's not our only bed, we have one more as well. We definitely have enough raspberries. This is one thing that I'd really like to improve on. This is our cold crops. So you've got cabbages, you've got cauliflower, you've got broccoli. And I feel like I've done a really good like bump of this year, but I want to definitely double down on this. I feel like this is like the future of our food. I want to have broccoli in the freezer. Cabbages last really well and you can ferment them, etc. I feel like we've got a really good sort of go on peppers because we grow a lot of peppers, but I'd like to see a few more chili peppers really. This area doesn't look very good or exciting, but we grow so many tomatoes this year and I'm kind of like at the point where I feel like we grow enough tomatoes. We grow 74 tomato plants each year, but also I feel that I'd like to increase the amount of tomatoes that I'm growing. So I'm going to have to find more tomato recipes to incorporate all of that in. So at the moment we are completely self-sufficient in tomato sauce, ketchup, barbecue sauce and fresh tomatoes, but we only eat fresh tomatoes once a year. So when the fresh tomatoes come out, we eat them until we're physically sick and we don't have them for the rest of the year. Every meal's like, oh, what are we going to have with our tomatoes? But it does mean that we get really excited for summer. The greenhouse, I feel, is going to be something that really needs to be utilised properly to make this kind of happen. I have grown melons in here and they were unsuccessful. I did grow aubergine in here last year, but it got them little spider mites, which I've never had an issue with them before, but it was a really trying year, so it could be that. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be putting in here. What do you think I should grow in the greenhouse to maximise production? Maybe peppers? I've tried peppers in there before. Definitely not tomatoes. I have so many tomatoes, I don't need to add tomatoes in there. I want something quite easy and very heat loving. Maybe chilies. I feel like this has been like the triumph of this year because this area used to be massively unproductive and now I've got so much production here. This year we haven't bought any Swedes at all because we've had this massive bed of Swedes. So I feel like one whole bed of Swedes are going to be exactly what we need each year. I'm also trying peas again. I'm not that great with peas. I don't grow a massive amount. I've done a whole entire row of peas here and I've bought a ton of peas. So we're probably going to do a whole bed of peas. Got broad beans along here nice and early, ton of cabbages. Once again, I am going to double down on the cabbages this year. I don't ever buy any rosemary, thyme, sage. That is always in my cupboard. I dry it, and marjoram, I dry it and I keep it and I use it throughout the year. So I do need to get better at basil. Basil's been a herb I've struggled to germinate, and I know who struggles to germinate basil, but I'm growing mammoth basil this year, which I'm super excited about. So hopefully it's going to be quite nice, and I'm going to hopefully get big big plants. Things like purple sprout and broccoli are really good for this challenge, because if I'm going to set and forget them, then by the time that spring kind of rolls around, then they're going to be really productive, where I don't have to kind of worry about them throughout the summer. I just plop them in and they just grow alone quietly, a little bit like garlic. Garlic does the same. I'm definitely going to grow more of these artichokes. Artichokes are a survival food. You'll never starve if you've got artichokes. We're only actually dug until about there, and then we've produced so many artichokes, man. It's ridiculous. And they store okay. If you leave them in the ground, they store perfectly, but if you take them out of the ground, they only store for a couple of weeks in a sealed, airtight container with a bit of mud. It does mean that we're going to be doubling down on things like potatoes. Potatoes are going to be really key for this. I love potatoes anyway, so that's not going to be a problem. So we're going to move away from pastas and breads and kind of move our focus onto potatoes. Of course, it depends on these bad boys. These are my trees. I'm not going to lie to you, this peach tree has been massively unproductive, like massively so. It produces so many blossoms each year, but it's still a really young tree and they tend to drop off. But we've had quite a bad, few spells where it blossoms and then suddenly we get a really big cold snap, so that could be the reason as well. But I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful every year. Really, I should cover it, but I absolutely never remember to, and it's already starting to get little blossoms on it already. This is going to be my potato bed. It's going to have several potato beds, not the only one. But I might do most of this area as potatoes, and I'm going to do a lot of horse manure and hopefully get a better yield than last year. Last year, absolute fail on the potato front. I always get like 100 kilos of potatoes easy, like without any effort, like a bit of watering, but that's about it. This year, I feel like I watered them pretty decently. Maybe I over-watered them. So I did read that they like a lot of water. Perhaps I love them to death, I'm not sure. But I got about 10 kilos of potatoes out of like 3 massive beds. So I am a little bit concerned about that. Perhaps it's because of the poor soil conditions. I'm going to put loads into the soil and hopefully this year it'll be all right. I want to get to the point where we have something to harvest every single week so that we don't have to go to the shop at all, because I feel like that will save me a heck of a load of money as well. They always say that gardening is meant to supplement your food bill, but then some people say that it doesn't and it's more expensive. I strongly think it does supplement my food bill, but it's time to put my money where my mouth is, or my broccoli where my mouth is. We've done really well this winter. It's probably the best winter that I've actually spent over the allotment, because I've got a lot more harvest than I normally do. Now, the issue with growing something every week is in the summer, you're absolutely swamped with harvesting and canning and getting all that stuff done. That sowing just goes out the window. But I won't do that next year because I'm really determined about this. So I've done a bit of research, and this is the list that I've kind of come up with for a family of 4. Now, this is based on our likes as a family. So if if it recommended, I think it was like 200 kale plants, and we don't really eat kale, there's no point of having 200 kale plants because I don't want to waste that much food. But there's also things like garlic, which I love. So I'm going to grow more than, say, the average Joe. We're going to start off, because it's almost January, with our warm crop. So we've got peppers, chilies and aubergines. Based on my list, I need 20 sweet peppers. I've done it so that Andrew counts as a whole person, so that if anything's lost through pests, weather, you name it, then I can go ahead and not worry. And I find them really reliable peppers. Got absolutely a ton of them this year. I've got 3 bags still in the freezer.